welcome to another edition of Fours and Sixers with me, Swaroop Swaminathan. As always, I have S. Gomesh with me. This is generally like a preview show to look ahead at the India-New Zealand series. The first test begins in Bangalore next week. After Bangalore, we go to Pune for the second test, and then we wrap up the series in Bombay in the early stages, in the early days of next month. Before we look at the series, though, Gomesh was in Chennai to cover the India-Bangladesh test. Just your thoughts on the series. How did it go from an Indian perspective?
I think they have picked up from where they left and they've become only stronger considering the return of the likes of Kohli and KL Rahul and of course Rishabh Pant, the biggest comeback among the three. And you thought during the England series, the way they dominated England after the initial hiccup, starting from Rajkot, you thought, okay, this is it. They couldn't get any stronger and then although the opposition is Bangladesh, not necessarily the strongest test side, you can see why this Indian team is almost impossible to defeat in these conditions. The resources they have and how they come to use, irrespective of who the captain is. I mean, due credit to Rohit, but irrespective of who the captain is, irrespective of who's doing what, somewhere someone will always be there to do the job. And that was once again evident in this series. Like even in Kanpur, we saw the manufactured result it out in 2 days. So
people talking about Gambol.
I mean, let's not go into labels. It's too soon and it's unnecessary. Even Gambhir wouldn't like that, to be very honest. In his first ever PC, just before the test season began, the first thing he said, like, he doesn't believe in labels. All he want to do is win, and that's the only philosophy or ideology that matters. So, there's no point in doing that. The better, sooner we move on to cricketing things, the better it is probably.
Moving on to the New Zealand series, obviously the one larger picture that India would want to do before they reach Australia is secure that WTC quota. If my understanding is correct, and my understanding is seldom correct, if India win 2-0 or perhaps even 3-0, they will rubber stamp their place in next year's final.
Yes, I think if they win 3-0, they're guaranteed a spot no matter what happens in Australia. And it should not be a surprise if that happens unless there is a very flat and slow surface as it was the case in Kanpur the last time New Zealand visited India in 2021. Otherwise, these three pitches, again, rain comes into play.
Bangalore is expected to be significant weather problems.
If you leave those things aside and give India a good 12 days of play, I'm sure they're going to come out of it 3-0, irrespective of the 11 they fielded.
We are recording this show almost 1 week before the first test, so if things change between now and the first test, do not hold us responsible for that. But the one significant pre-tournament news is that Kane Williamson has been ruled out for the first test. I mean, obviously, Williamson is a really fine batter. Last 3, 4, 5 years, he's had probably a record that will rival even Joe Root. But in these conditions, Williamson, apart from the debut test, hasn't really shown. Just what, even then, how much of a miss will he be?
More than the batting, yes, he'll be a big miss. But even if you don't, look at the lack of performance against India in India, so to say, what he brings to the table with the composure on the field, that will be a big miss for the team entirely. But in many ways, it is an exciting 3 weeks for New Zealand as well, considering they did lose badly against Sri Lanka. The match against Afghanistan was a drama in itself. But in many ways, this series is very exciting for. It will show what someone like Rachin Ravindra, Darren Mitchell, they have been known to be good players of spin. They have been practicing in India for a while now, even before the Afghanistan test began. How they are going to fare against this bowling attack will show what lies ahead for New Zealand in this particular format. Especially someone like Rachin has been training. He trained for like 2-3 weeks in Chennai at the Super Kings Academy as well. But he couldn't do much. He's the last time he toured India, he made his debut and he was more of a bowler rather than a batter. Now he's their number 4 and who hardly bowls because Santner is going to be there, Glenn Phillips is going to be there. So
Ajas Patel.
Ajaz Patel is going to be there. I mean, 10 wickets in an innings last time. So, Rachin's. I will be looking very keenly on what Rachin is going to do in these 3 matches because this is a team that's full of seniors and he's probably going to be the one who is going to take this team forward, potentially in all formats. So, how he fares will do a world of confidence not just to himself but to the team as well.
Interesting, you mentioned the names of Rachin, you mentioned Santner, there's Ajas. In the Indian contingent, there's Jadeja, there's potentially Kuldeep, even Aksar. Is this a series of left arm spinners? And both teams do have problems against left arm spin.
It could be, but I the last time a Bangalore test was that intense with regards to spin was probably when
Australia.
India and Australia played in 2017. But I think it depends on the surface on what Pune offers. But knowing from very limited what we have seen from this team management and what we have seen in Chennai as well as Kanpur, it should not come as a surprise if they prefer sporting wickets because they are also looking to ready themselves for Australia. Even though if they win the WTC secured, there is a bigger thing at stake that they have won both the times they have reached in. Australia is more desperate than India for a change, and that's a very weird thing to say from an Indian perspective in this century. So, so I don't think it should be a surprise if the wickets are as it was in Chennai, in Bangalore, and Pune. Bombay, you can obviously expect the red soil pitch, which will have the pace and bounce, and then spin like it did the last time around as well.
One thing that the New Zealand, especially the top order, has is that a plethora of left-handers. You have Devon Conway, Tom Latham is in there somewhere. At number 4, you have Rachin Ravindra. Santner is the spin bowling all-rounder. Ashwin will be licking his lips again.
I mean, he should be and should not. I think he's in 526 somewhere. So 3 test matches, give or take 15 wickets. I expect him to touch at least 540 by the end of the series if he plays all 3 matches. It should not be a surprise if he goes to 550 as well. Given the fact that there is only 4 home test matches till the end of next year, only makes it all the more interesting. But it also depends on how many spinners India play. Like if Kuldeep comes into play, Ashwin is not necessarily assured that many kind of wickets. But even with Kuldeep, he did take 26 wickets in that England series. A lot of it coming in the second half. So he will be raring to go because he will not be he might not be a regular in the Australia series. He might not going to be a regular in the England series away as well. So this is his chance to make the most of it and he will not be looking too far ahead. For India is one thing, but again coming back to the left arm spin angle what you mentioned, the one good thing about India as well as New Zealand, they also have a number of left-handers they can move up and down the order, whether it's Jaiswal at the top and Pant and then Jadeja as well.
Akshar may come in. I mean, Kuldeep is there.
Yes, so especially Pant, considering it's not just about taking on spinners. Just the presence of him will restrict the captains from using the left-arm spinners in general. So I think New Zealand are going to go up against a much superior side in terms of quality.
Moving on from the New Zealand batters and the Indian bowlers, it's time to slowly pull back the curtain on the Indian batters, the Indian top order batters. I was just going through some numbers over the last few days. While Gautam Gambhir and the coach before him, Dravid, never really believed in labels and so on and so forth. One fact that really jumped out is that India have been scoring runs at an unprecedented clip over the last 12 to 18 months. It is my firm belief that the man primarily responsible for this shift between say 3.1 or 3.2, scoring at 3.1 or 3.2 runs per over to 3.9, even touching 4 is Jaiswal. Just talk to us about Yashasvi. I mean,
if you have seen him closely before or even kept track of his record before he broke into the Indian team. The year before he broke into the Indian team, he had 4 double centuries. He strikes at 80 in the first class circuit as well. So it's not new for someone, uh, it's not what Ben Duckett assumes and believes, but it's not inspired by England or anybody else. That's just the way he operates. Because when he tries to, pull himself down, it sometimes, came back to bite him. He has to keep going for him to thrive. Even before the Chennai Test match, we saw him struggle a lot against paces. Whereas in the Test match, also there was an initial phase, but once he gets going, there is very little anybody can do to stop him. He's as complete a player as someone like Rishabh Pant can be. If Jaiswal has brought up, pushed it from 3.5 to 3.8 or whatever the number is. Before that, for the 12 to 18 months, I think Rishabh Pant and someone like maybe Shreyas Iyer for a brief while played their bit as well. And Rohit, as a captain, he's done a lot in white ball cricket, but whereas in Test cricket, it is yet to be translated. He's yet to seal his legacy or whatever that he wants to achieve as a captain. It's monumental what he has done in white ball cricket for an Indian cricket system. Whereas Test cricket, he's yet to tour abroad. He's barely played captain one Test abroad in the final as well.
Yep.
And the two in South Africa, where there are questions about his tactics at certain points. So Rohit has done his bit when the things get tough. Like you remember the Chennai Test
His default
last
mode
time
is being
around.
defensive.
Yeah, and even as a batter, like whether it's an end or once his century against Australia or his century against England, when he knows that there is no other way out of it, he is going to come and set the tone. And he is one of the few right-handers in that lineup who is capable of taking on spinners, whereas every other batter, irrespective of whether it's Kohli or KL, are prone to go into a shell against spin, whereas Rohit is somewhat in the category of Jaiswal and Rishabh Pant.
Continuing on the subject of Indian batting, the last 1, 2, 3 years we've been talking about this so-called transition phase. The transition is now well and truly underway. You have Jaiswal at the top. You have Shubman, who's probably nailed a spot at 3. Pant, I mean, already established in the middle order. Do you know, see like a plethora of batters whose primary currency of run scoring is hitting boundaries, something which may not necessarily be the case over the people they replace, and that itself seems to be like a good thing.
Uh, I'm not sure if I completely, buy into what you're saying because we are talking about people who are way past their prime. Like even Kohli would probably accept that somewhere between 2016 to 2017 is where he was almost invincible, and he was scoring a lot of boundaries at the time. So it's not necessarily about the intent of it, but probably the skill part and the age that comes in, reflexes and other things that comes into play, the confidence factor of it. But I think Indian cricket has always been like that, whether it's someone like Lakshman at number 6 and from there on to uh, Rishabh Pant came in, and before that whoever was there in the 4-5, Kohli at 5-4, and then he moved up and Rahane was there. So they've always done this bit, but I think it is also depending on the conditions where you play. Like the last between 2018 to 2023, there was a proper pace pandemic, whereas now we are seeing a shift everywhere. The pitches are becoming flatter because of the resources other teams has as well, like England, what's happening in Pakistan right now, or even Australia. Even Australia is largely going to be batting friendly, so they are going to thrive in it, and bowlers will have to work harder than what it used to be. And even in this transition, it's not a guaranteed place. Like the only good thing about this transition is that someone like Kohli or KL will know that there is a Sarfraz, there is a particle, or somebody is there to push for a spot. And if they go through a lean patch, questions will be asked because they are there in the squad and they have proven at the international level. So that's what will be key for India in the next till this end of WTC cycle at least.
Just one of the last things that we'll speak about today is coming to the Indian fast bowling unit, obviously, all of them were really, really good against Bangladesh in those two tests. They picked up wickets whenever they were brought on to bowl. Akashdeep excelled, Bumrah excelled. With the final test in the first week of November and then short turnaround time before those 5 tests in Australia, do you see workload management now entering the equation?
I
Even
think
if it's too early in the summer to talk about
no, I
terms
think
like
it
that.
will because it's see we saw India play three seamers in both the pitches. It also had to do with the conditions. Like Chennai was extremely overcast on day one, and so was Kanpur. Whereas it should not come as a surprise where India played two pacers and three spinners through the series, depending on weather conditions, obviously. And if that is the case, someone like Akashdeep and Siraj could play. Someone like Shami is still in doubt. Bumrah will not play all three matches. That is a guarantee at this point. Rishabh Pant might not play all three matches. They would want some game time to someone like
Jurel, yeah.
Jurel as well. So it will come into play, especially considering even in uh, Australia, you are not going to see these 3 or 4 bowlers play all matches. They are going to carry at least 6, 7 pacers who will have to be rotated. Uh, Even if there is not injuries, they would want to rotate depending on how the series is going. Maybe for pink ball they'll play the full strength. Maybe for Perth they'll play full strength. But whereas depending on conditions they would be rotating because they will have to. We saw last time what happened when Australia played the same bowlers. By the time the fourth test came, they were like they didn't have any energy in them to go through to the crease. So there will be workload management, especially for the pace attack, and expect spin to do a lot of work in these 3 test matches.
Just finally, I would say 3-0 India as long as the weather holds.
I think that's the norm at this point. Whenever
Yeah.
India plays at home, they have won 18 series on a
Yeah,
drought, and
which is a joke.
it also feels like they have played only 18 in
Yeah.
how
I
many
mean, it
like
looks like Jodhpur plays 18 tests in any given year.
exactly like 18 in 12 18 series in
Yeah.
12 years. So I think it's also we also have to recognize and record the fact that we are probably seeing one of the best home sides in this format in this game in this game, and we will not have it for long considering.
Do not take this for guarantee
Yes, do
because
not take this for
it will,
granted.
yeah.
Especially Ashwin and Jadeja. Ashwin just turned 38. Jadeja is in his late 30s. So uh, acknowledge and acknowledge and record it and recognize it as long as they are there. That's probably what we can say.
And on that note, thanks for watching another edition of Fours and Sixers. This is Swaroop signing off. Bye bye. Take care.